Ask a person who grew up in the evangelical church when they accepted Jesus, and they'll tell you either beside the bed with their parents or at church camp. It's that common. Speaking of guitar-playing pastors with faux hawks, our next speaker is Peter Bouvier. Peter is a former ordained minister with the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. POC. Go POC. He converted as a teenager, drawn in by the lively music, the promise of community, and the promise of community. Peter spent 13 years in Bible school and pastoral ministry, and over 30 years of his life in the church. Peter. Hi, Peter.
Thank you. Just before I begin, I just want to say to my friends, what an honor to share this night with you all. I look in the mirror and who do I see? I see a 57-year-old man, a father, a teacher, a student, a musician, a naturalist, a skeptic, and yes, an atheist. Yet it's who I don't see in the mirror today that is the focus tonight. That person that I so sincerely was is just a shadow and a faded memory. The current me can scarcely relate to that person I was. Is it who I was for many years that defines me, or is it who I am today? I was a devout Christian, a believer in the Christian God and the Christian scriptures and all that came with those things, such as the innate sinful nature and the need for salvation and eternal punishment for sin. From the age of 14 to my late 40s, I dedicated my life to this worldview. I cut my hair short in the 70s because my pastor told me it was a shame for a man to have long hair. I suffered constant guilt and confusion and even self-loathing over my sexuality while I navigated puberty. Just being aware of my sexual development was further proof of my sinful nature and need of salvation. As a young man, I loved languages and literature. I considered university studies in these areas, but I went to Bible school because my youth pastor said that I should. I completed that schooling and went into ministry at the age of 20 because I heard weekly that that's what I should do with my life and my skills. I volunteered and worked for no or little pay, moved often, lived in poor conditions, and often worked 2 jobs so that I could be a minister. I went to the churches that didn't have any money and to the places most didn't want to go, and I dragged my young family along. Finally, in about 12 years of ministry, I was done doing things just because someone speaking for God told me to do it. I found myself making a decision that was to lead me to becoming who I am today. I went to college and then on to university. There I studied linguistics and geology and history. I got out of my tiny enclosed Christian world and I stepped out, socially and intellectually, into an ever-expanding world. This was the beginning of the end of that person I used to be. I met intelligent, loving, interesting, and yes, good moral people who didn't follow my Christian faith. I realized that my love of Scripture was a love of literature. I discovered that there were so many amazing writings outside the Bible, and I began to read the Bible critically. The pillars of the truth that my Christian mentors had endorsed so emphatically came crumbling down. The house of cards fell quickly. I admit that I was a little lost for a while after that. Now when I look back, I realize just how confused and stuck I was. This is not a realization that came to me by choice. It was thrust upon me via new information. What followed was years of cognitive dissonance and trying to figure out what was next. I was, in a way, stuck in a world which I didn't belong. Rather than reflect on this now, I have chosen tonight to resurrect some of my writing from that time in my life. These These are highly personal, yet I've chose to share them today with you so that others may know that those of us who deconvert, we don't set out to ruin our lives or our friendships or our families. These first two poems are from a time when I was confused and unhappy, probably a time that I was losing my faith, but not really understanding what was happening. Dream of despair. I held my breath as long as I could, down into the deep of sleep, until things real were as dreams, and things dreamy were just as real. Until life was like a cheap copy of an impressionist watercolor that hung in my living room when I was a child. Paris in the rain, a blur of color. The people in the lampstand seemed to melt and run down the wall, like a world crying, like searching for, forms through a windshield, distorted by driving rains. I closed my eyes as long as I could, until the insides of my eyelids became a movie screen in my mind, until I watched every episode of disappointment and every rerun of regret, until I felt the numbing curtain of despair ink around my soul. I shut my eyes as long as I could, until the soundtrack of life rang on in ambivalence, like the distant voices of a crowded summer beach fade away into intonations and unintelligible sounds, unclear, real, or imagined. I closed the world out as long as I could, but when I awoke, it was still there as I left it. Hatred and love, deceit and truth, elation and misery, hope and despair, life and death. The moment and the dream, the tangible and the mystical, and I still can't decide which world to choose. Truth is more painful than fiction, so I'll be a novel for you. I'll comfort you like a good book by the fire. Get lost in the story while I hide the truth. Playing the part has its cost, but isn't that what acting is? It's only cost me myself, who I am. But what's that compared to the conflict that truth seems to always bring out? I'm getting kind of used to the idea. I'm almost convinced that I am who I pretend to be. It's not so bad. It's better than showing you who I am. I tried that, but that was way back in chapter 3. I don't want the world to see what's written between the lines. I know that as long as I seem to go along, then this story will turn out just fine. It's funny with those romantic novellas. Everyone gets another chance to fall in love. I guess that's why Shakespeare never wrote one. Is it tragic that I'm living a lie? And now I accept my persona. Everyone likes who they think I am. I'm quite entertaining when I play the part. It was even better when it was real. No one's caught on to the entropy. No one knows that I'm dying inside. It's not so bad being the character like, 'cause I'm not sure I even like the character I am. Everyone's a novel, waiting to be read. Voices, dialogue, things rather not said. I've got some chapters I could do without, but I'd rather be a novel, so you're never sure what I'm about. Everyone likes who they think I am. Everyone knows what they think I said. Everyone likes to think they know why I do what I do. I'm a piece of fiction. I'll be a novel for you. Don't overanalyze me. Don't try and get in my head. Just enjoy the romance and the fantasy. I'll just be someone that you can see yourself with. I am what you think I am, if it makes you feel free. No one gets ill. There's no murder, just lies. No cancer, no accident. But somebody dies. The story is fiction, the hero lives on. I'm still here. It's just me that's gone. I'm the happy ending you've always wanted, the house with the picket fence and more. Funny thing about my role in life story, it's been so planned for so long. It's like I've been here before. I'm the steadfast hero, never doubts, never looks back. So, read all about him, curl up in your favorite nook. Too bad you never noticed. I died long before the end of the book. I was in shock. I was angry. I had trusted my new family and I did everything they had asked. I was deeply sad. It's not easy to realize that your worldview has suddenly shifted dramatically. I lost friends, community, and years of my life. But in the end, finally after the struggle, I let it all go. Now I see my place in time and space in a new way. I do it all so removed from and without that person that I used to see in the mirror, and without God, a holy book, or a community built on a very narrow view of an ever-expanding universe. I will close with a poem that I wrote after I let go of the struggle. Life is good now. I'm not angry or depressed, and I am not alone. Metamorphosis. Walk with me as I change. Others refuse to understand. Like all, they fear change. Like so many, they only understood what they can force to stay the same. Their creeds demand it. Their system requires it. They manufacture the chains that keep us stillborn. Yet I am in metamorphosis. I am not what I was, nor will be what I am. I am becoming. My past is my shame and my anchor. My future is decided, the fruit of my past. But now, the unexpected, the unimaginable, the unforgivable. I have woven a cocoon of possibility. I have encased myself in free thought. I am now bold, beautiful, flying free to an uncharted path of my own creation.